You know, many jazz and guitar fans will recognize the name Randy Bernsen. He is a renowned composer and performer in the world of jazz and fusion and has recorded and performed with people like Herbie Hancock, Peter Erskine, Wayne Shorter, Michael Brecker, Jaco Pastorius, Joe Zawinul, and many, many more. Known for his melodic tunes and soaring guitar solos, he's a favorite in South Florida, where he's lived for decades, as well as Asia and Europe and beyond. But his guitar solos aren't the only thing that soar. He also soars 20 to 30,000 feet above the ground as a professional pilot. Randy Bernsen is next on The Talent Show. Stay tuned. Back on The Talent Show, my name's Tom Alexander, and my guest is Randy Bernsen, guitarist, composer, and pilot. That's right, pilot. Randy, welcome. How are you?
Thomas, great to see you. Pleasure to be here. But 2025, how could it get more exciting than that? That's what I want to know.
I'm telling you, can you believe it? 2025 was like stuff you'd see in science fiction movies when we were kids, right? You know,
Ever think we'd make it? Did you ever think we'd make it?
crazy. It's crazy, but here we are in 2025. Randy, first, for the folks who may not know your music, how long have you been playing and composing professionally?
Um, I started playing when I was 12 years old, like so many of our colleagues and stuff, and kind of started writing the right when I started playing,
Hmm.
for better or worse. Hopefully it's progressed a little bit since then. But I remember writing something when I was 13 years old, whether it's just what is writing to me, it's just the fascination of something and you have to capture it. What's the difference between a writer and non-writer? I can't tell, but I just know when I hear something and it interests me, I want to grab it and catch it. Maybe other people just don't feel that compulsory move, but I do, always did. In fact, the writing on my first record, the big band I did with Jaco Pastorius and Peter Erskine and the University, my big band, Old Hats. I wrote the nucleus of that song when I was 16 years old.
Hmm.
You know, some people say that the writing and the songs never end. Other people say it takes two people to do art, one to do it and the other one to say, hey, it's done. Well, I'm still waiting for that person to tell me it's done because I'm just going to keep fine tuning that. But
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
always done it, Tom. You probably were the same. I don't know.
yeah. It's letting it go at some point is certainly something that it
An art.
continues to be a challenge every day. Um, you know, I'm fascinated by the dual career because here you are, you've recorded music and performed music live with all these folks, people that I mentioned in the open, legendary jazz musicians, and all kinds of folks that have, I'm sure, been an inspiration to you, and vice versa. You've inspired them with your playing. Um, but then the flip side of the coin is flying. Um, First of all, what got you into flying? And what was the one thing that's like, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna just put the guitar down for a few minutes and and learn how to fly. When did that happen?
Well, that is a great question. And here's my stock answer on that, but you made me think about a little something different. First of all, number one, I never put the guitar down. You know what I mean? For flying. I've just always worked it into my schedule because I never, and to this day, I really don't consider myself an I mean, I am a pilot. I've been doing it now for, I don't know, 25, 28 years, and I make my living at it. But I look at life through the lens of a creator, as a musician. Oh, yeah. So when we talk about pilot, I'm kind of going, yeah, that's right. I am a pilot. Gosh, yeah, forgot. But going back to the question is probably me, like every other kid, at some point thought that airplanes were cool. And wow, that's kind of neat. So I think that seed is behind everyone. When does that seed get watered? How does it get watered? And that's the way life is different for everybody, and the fruit comes out at different times. Um, I remember in my 20s taking that fascination, just the next step more, and getting a little ancient flight simulator. And I would be up to all hours of the day. After a gig at 2 a.m., I'd be on that Mac. You remember those old Macs? And
Yeah.
these computer simulation games were very antique at the time. But it was just a fascinating thing, and I'd love to do it, and it was just fine and all that. Well, a pivotal point came after my 2 years playing with Joe Zawinul in the 90s. And I had a few records under my belt, and life is just moving and going on. And I said, this is just awesome. Well, came back to the States from Europe. We played all over with Joe. And one of my buddies, who was a guitar student of mine, happened to be a flight instructor. So it's kind of like, well, I got the invitation. I said, okay, let's do this thing. So all of a sudden, I'm trading guitar lessons for flying lessons. No visions of grandeur. I'm just having a great time fulfilling part of a childhood fascination. And just literally, Tom, one foot in front of the other. Did I ever consider making it a second career? No, one foot, it took me 8 months to get my first license. Well, this is cool. Instrument license is the next. No, that's science, mathematics. But flying and music are so similar in many ways. Both of them are fluid environments. Both of them require a thorough knowledge of principles, and to break the laws, you got to know the laws.
Yeah.
They're very, very similar in the fluidity, and you have different factors. When you're improvising, you're listening to someone here, you're feeling the groove, you're thinking too much, you stop thinking. A lot of similarities. So I just kept going. What can I tell you, man? I got
Yeah.
my instrument license, and then a guy at church was a American airline captain who was also a Top Gun instructor. And he goes, "Hey, man, you just rent the airplane, and I'll teach you what I know." It just kept going, kept going, kept going, and always doing music, always writing. And now I got flying. And then all of a sudden, I get a call from a good buddy of mine, great guitar player who's left us 5 years ago, Angela Deanna. And he was not only a great guitar player, but he also had a hair salon. Him and his wife had a hair salon.
Uh-huh.
Calls me up one day and he goes, "Look, you got to talk to this guy because he keeps wanting pilots. And if he doesn't stop talking, I'm going to cut his ears off. Would you please talk to him?" Sure.
Right.
And the guy goes, "Hey, his name was Randy also." And he goes, "Interested in flying?" I said, "Always interested." He goes, "Well, how about I pay for half your training and you pay for the other half, and I'll put you to work." Work? What do you mean work? He goes, "Yeah, I'm flying Learjets, and it's an opportunity." And I kind of went, "Oh, I'm a musician." He goes, "I know who you are. I know what you do. You just fly when you want to when you want to fly." Basically, Tom, that hasn't changed
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
28 years. It's just
Wow.
has grown to flying bigger airplanes, but I've always tried to keep the contract basis where a client or two, these clients own these airplanes. They do need someone to drive the damn thing. But I can say yes, thank you, or no, thank you as a contract pilot.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you brought something up where you talked about the similarities of music and flying, but I would imagine also there's some elements, obviously, I would think there's certain elements that are different. One's a little left brain, the other's a little right brain, but they meet somewhere in the middle. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, I mean, you have to go down a whole laundry list of boxes to check before you take off. Um, you don't always have to do that when you're doing a jazz gig. You pick sling on the guitar and off you go, and it's a little different. Talk a little bit about some of the differences, the left brain, right brain thing, if you can.
Right. Okay. Very good point. When push comes to push, and you're all set up, and that's what the key word here is set up, whether it's a jazz gig, you've arrived at the gig, you got your amplifier, you've got your instrument, the guys, you're ready to go. There is a, amount of setup, let alone a full career that backed it up, that knows everything how to get there, right? You're right. Each flight requires more setup. There's more things that we have to deal with, for instance, weather, you know.
Yeah.
With music, what do you deal with? What's something in music gig that can vary? I got it. The bass player being late. I'm kidding. Sorry, bass players. But
Yeah.
the setup involved is more detailed to get to arrive at the place where you can, let's call them both jam, shall we? When it comes time, 1, 2, 3, 4, play music, good. Same thing with the flying. We're all set, flaps are down to takeoff, everything's in motion, emergency stuff is all set, and then it's 1, 2, 3, jam. Here comes the throttles, and away you go, and you're improvising just like anybody else. And that doesn't change. So now, same thing when you land, you gotta, so much feel, Tom. So much you're feeling the wind, you're watching your speed, you're finishing a song. You want the song, hopefully it's had its crescendos, decrescendos. You're coming down, you want to end it nicely. Now, of course, in flying, you want to have a smooth ending at all times. In
Yeah.
music, it can be it can be bombastic, it can be anything.
Yeah, you don't want a bombastic landing, right?
No.
That's
So it's a very good point you're bringing up, Tom. So music, you can, the ups and downs can be wonderfully more colorful and accepted.
yeah.
Flying, you kind of want to draw between the lines, but there's a lot of drawing, there's a lot of improvisation between the lines.
Yeah, yeah. I've even seen shows where TV shows and movies where I about a flight in progress,
Mhm.
and the pilot will say, the captain will say, "Hey, you feel that tailwind a little bit? You feel that?" And I think it's those kinds of things. I've seen it many times on TV shows and movies that what you described as a feel. I mean, yes, you've got all this training and you've got all, how to do these kinds of things. But at the same time, they're, like you said, improvisation in the moment, because I guess you can't predict every single thing that's going to happen
That's
when
the
you're
thing.
20, 30,000 feet up in the air,
Right.
right?
Now, hopefully, in your training has prepared you for the big things that can happen.
Right.
But just like music, music and flying, there's a lot of nuance. There really is, and
Yeah.
there are techniques that go with these things. So, we're playing music and someone in a 12 bar blues and someone kind of sidesteps and goes a half step down. Now, we know if that's done correctly, it's cool. We just want to make sure that his capo hasn't slid down and he is in another key for the next 3 minutes.
Right.
But you're aware of, this is a slight exaggeration. You're aware of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're aware that, okay, well, that's cool because jazz is in and out. Jazz is the black and the white, the up and the down. It's the wonderful feelings you get after you establish a base, and then you mess with that base.
Yeah.
So good point, Tom. Flying isn't really like that. You can have fun doing it, but once you establish a base, you want to stay there, and you're looking for anomalies.
Yeah.
In jazz, we want anomalies. I
That's
do
very
it.
true. Yeah. That's
I mean,
very
I want
true.
to play, when I play music or improvisation, I want to play what I don't know. You know what I mean,
Yeah.
I want to play what I don't know. When I'm flying, I always kind of want to know what's going on. I want to know the nuances and then say, well, that looks like a fire on that right wing. Let me watch that a little closer there
Yeah.
and know how to deal with it.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. And as a passenger, it's good to know that you're keenly aware of everything going on with the plane itself and the weather and everything around it. My guest is Randy Bernsen, guitarist, composer, and pilot. And I just think it's a wonderful dual career. Certainly one of the most interesting things we've chatted about here on the Talent Show. We're going to talk to Randy about inspiration, both how flying can help inform music and vice versa. We'll be back right after these words on the Talent Show. Stay tuned. This is the Talent Show. My name is Tom Alexander. We're back with Randy Bernsen. Randy, of course, a great, just a wonderful musician, guitarist, composer who's played with many, many great stars. I should say. He himself has released multiple albums. I got to be about 9, 10 albums by now, Randy, or more.
Something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you talk about being up in the air, and first of all, you get this view, this vista of things that
That never grows old, by the way.
I would imagine it doesn't grow.
Never grows old.
Yeah, and let me ask you, how many times, have you been up there and you're I don't want to say you're on autopilot, but you're in a relaxed state, everything's smooth, weather's great, and you're kind of looking. Does that experience help inform a tune, a composition, a feel, a vibe in your music?
Tom, yes. And to back up a little bit as far as the process of flying, this is just my opinion, but every time when we take off and the cloud layer is low, and you may be 1 to 2 minutes in that cloud layer, but once you break out of that gray in the cloud layer into beautiful blue sky and the clouds are just slowly disappearing underneath you, that is just awesome. It's very liberating. I have a sense of, wow, no matter where I am or what I'm doing, there's always like hope. There's always something to look forward to. The sun is always above the clouds. I mean, so many great people who can poetically put their words together much better than I have written songs and books about it. And, from down to up, gray to color, it's always liberating. It's inspiring to see a sunset. I'm like a kid at all times when I first started flying, almost like.
Yeah, and you saying it never gets old. It's got to
No.
be special. Like you said, you break that cloud, that ceiling of the clouds, and
Yeah.
then and there you are in the big blue, if you will. And then vice versa. I mean, have you ever, you've have you ever thought you're in the air, a tune you've written or something that you've played with musicians? Has it sort of just been an uplifting sort of maybe that's going through your head, and you're thinking, does it sort of
Yes, it
help?
does, Tom. Particularly if I've been working on something,
Yeah.
so it's resident, shall we say, and then you're observing. And the proper way to fly a jet, if you want to be safe and sound, is with the autopilot. So most of the time we are monitoring, we're system monitors, we're watching the marvelousness of these technologies, things work together, climb rate, altitude, speed. And when it comes together and everything's in moving like a symphony. So your thoughts are like straight ahead, you're moving with that symphony. And if I'm working on a tune recently, sometimes that just movement forward pushes an idea. It gives more weight to where I may have been saying, wow, do I go to A minor here or the B flat major 7? So it does absolutely, it's not one thing we do. It's all part of a lifestyle. It's all part of my lifestyle anyway.
Yeah.
Part of
Uh,
my lifestyle. They both blend. They have to blend.
yeah. No, it's fascinating. We were talking ahead of time, and you fly a Lear jet. By the way, what's the largest and what's the capacity on the planes you fly? How many folks can get on there?
Okay, well, this particular one I've been flying for 4 years now is called a Honda jet. Honda has come up with a wonderful light jet, they call it.
Hmm.
I will most likely always keep in the smaller jets because the bigger the metal, the bigger the suitcase, Tom. You know, you've heard of these Gulfstream 4, 5, 6, whatever they are. Those are made to go across the country
Yeah.
to Japan, to Europe. That means you're gone a lot, you know. I love to travel. I grew up traveling. My mother started me traveling. My stepfather was an airline pilot and flew B-29. So this is all part of the fabric.
Wow.
But as far
Yeah.
as me going and working for someone else for a month or something like that, yeah, you know, I'd rather do these short trips. What I'm getting at is that's why I like these small jets because they're not going to be going
Yeah.
to California all the time. You know,
Right.
I've taken a few over to Europe, which sounds opposite of what I'm saying. It is and it isn't. Then if I'm doing something like that, I got to stop in northern Canada, go over to Greenland, go over to Iceland, stop in Wick, Scotland. Well, now I'm making an adventure of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I turn it into like, oh, maybe these stops. No, no, no. We're going to stop a day in Greenland and see the Northern Lights. We're going to go to Iceland, which is a wonderfully cool, very popular place now.
Yeah.
And we're going to come down. So, but that's occasionally. My
Right.
point is, I fly the six to eight seater planes.
6 to 8 seats. Yeah. Yeah. And you've flown with some jet setters, if you will. Can you share a name or two, some famous folks maybe that have hired you to fly them?
Well, I really can't say the names, but I've for sure flown with some real top guns, some really,
Some Top Guns.
yeah,
Okay.
some really great
Okay.
pilots,
That's
you know.
very interesting way to put it. Okay, so we'll take that for some Top Guns. All right. Well, good to know. Uh, Randy Bernsen is my guest, and we've got a little more to chat about, and we'll do that on the other side of the break. But before we do, Randy, we've been hearing for the last, I don't know, month and a half, 2 months about all these UAP, UFO, you name it, New Jersey, the skies, people seeing all kinds of stuff up there. In all the time you've been flying, have you ever encountered anything that you're just like, gee, what the heck was that? I never saw one of those before.
Great question. Tom, 2 months ago, I'm in Europe, flying back to London, and the sky's really dark. And I'm looking around for anything and everything, and I see a wonderful shooting star go by. For sure, it was a shooting star.
Yeah.
Now, so I've never seen anything in 28 plus years of flying. My stepfather, who I mentioned, flew for Eastern Airlines and flew in World War II, 30,000 hours of flying, never saw anything either.
Hmm.
Do I sense some validity here in this whole thing going on? Of course I do. You know what I mean? Of course, we could go on and on with that. Is it, are they re-engineering stuff? I think that's very possible. I think we've had stuff that does all this kind of crazy stuff for years, actually, you know.
Yeah, a little top secret action happening.
Why is it coming out now? Well, I don't know. Why is the sky blue? But there's just too many things people have seen and that, and you
Yeah.
know, we're, my bottom dollar on that is we're all in God's hands, and I'm not worried about anything, you know. But it is quite interesting.
It is interesting. It is interesting. Well, Randy, we definitely want to ask you on the other side. Just wrap this up with one other question that's got me thinking because guitar and pilot want to find out something else. And we will when we come back from this break. This is The Talent Show. I'm Tom Alexander. My guest is Randy Bernsen. Back in a moment. Wrapping things up now on The Talent Show. My guest is Randy Bernsen. Randy, a great guitarist and composer, as well as a commercial pilot. And Randy, those two things seem like to the average, to us humans here, our mortals here on Earth, that just seems pretty incredible, you know? But is there another thing that you do? Do you have another hidden talent that maybe you could share with us, or something that you would maybe something that you would have liked to have continued to do, but maybe there just wasn't the time?
Um, that would be called barbecue, you know.
Barbecue.
I won't
Okay.
call myself a barbecue master, you know. But what's that's gosh, that's such an interesting question because I listen to all these different podcasts. I mean, from Joe Rogan to Sean, what's his name, to Peterson, to you name it. And there's Epstein, the guy. There are so many bright people. And I said, man, you know, could I have like gotten a better grasp on all that stuff? Honest to God, this is just last week, and I'm thinking, I've just dedicated my whole life to exploring the unattainable. The meaning music. I want to deal with the things you can't touch. I want to be touched by it. I want the spirit to touch me and create from that. But that has been my whole life. Instead of uh, being an expert on biblical archaeology or scientific, something like that. So it's kind of an interesting, I'm observing myself going, wow, why would you even feel like that? But I do, I'm just blown away with so many different people's, you know, crafts, art, geniuses. It's a wonderful time of life. It's 70 years old.
Well, I could tell you, music and flying have kept you young, because I never would have guessed in a million years you were 70. You look absolutely fantastic, and keep whatever you're doing, keep it rocking, because it agrees with you, sir. I think
So
that's
far, so good, Tom. I think in what else, man, we haven't discussed it. Maybe we're not supposed to, but honest to goodness, man, my belief in the Lord and everything that keeps me on the ground and off the ground, but in one piece. Thank you. Amen.
there you go. All right, sir. Well, there he is, Randy Bernsen. He is a pilot, a guitarist, a composer, and a
Barbecue.
aspiring barbecue master. Is that fair to say?
Thomas, this has been a fantastic experience. I can thank you from the bottom of my heart. It was a lot of
Well,
fun.
thank you for joining us, Randy. We really appreciate it. Randy Bernsen, our guest right here on The Talent Show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'm Tom Alexander. We'll see you again next time. So long, everybody.